Munich, Germany, September 9th, 2025. The IAA Motor Show opened in Munich against the backdrop of deepening debates about Europe's transition to electric mobility. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz used the high-profile stage to call on the European Union to adjust its approach, urging Brussels to consider the growing concerns of Europe's car makers. As the world's largest manufacturers gathered to showcase innovations, the underlying tension was clear. How fast and at what cost should Europe phase out combustion engines? Taking the podium to a packed audience of industry leaders, policymakers and journalists, Chancellor Friedrich Merz immediately addressed the EU's timetable. He did not question the need for change, but challenged the rigidity of the current framework. Friedrich Merz said, "We are, of course, committed to the transition to e-mobility, but we need more flexibility in regulation. We need smart, reliable and flexible European regulation. It is more necessary than ever. We want to achieve climate protection as cost-effectively as possible through technological openness. Unilateral political commitments to specific technologies are not only fundamentally the wrong economic policy for these industries, they are also not the way to reliably achieve our common goals." The remarks landed with force. For weeks, German media had speculated whether Merz would soften Berlin's stance on Brussels' climate targets. His words confirmed it. Germany wants Europe to keep the door open to more than one technological pathway. Beyond environmental targets, Merz framed the debate in terms of Germany's economic fabric. He emphasized that cars were not just a consumer product, but an integral part of national identity and prosperity. Friedrich Merz said, "The car is a pillar of individual mobility and will remain so in the future." For Germany, this means that the automotive industry is and will remain a key industry, a key sector for the prosperity of our country. In terms of turnover, as you all know, the automotive industry is still by far the most important industrial sector in Germany. It was a reminder that over 800,000 Germans are directly employed in automotive manufacturing, with millions more in related supply chains. The sector, valued globally for engineering excellence, remains Germany's crown jewel. Yet its shift toward electrification requires investments of unprecedented scale. If Merz stopped short of rejecting the EU's 2035 combustion ban outright, Bavaria's Minister-President Markus Söder did not. Speaking at the same event, Söder sharpened the criticism and took aim directly at Brussels. Markus Söder said, "That is why, for me, it is quite clear that the ban on combustion engines as it is conceived, with a technology decision made by politicians and bureaucrats, is the wrong approach. This ban on combustion engines is wrong, ladies and gentlemen. We must repeal it at this point. We need other options because, to be perfectly honest, combustion engines still have a future. Electric mobility will prevail in the long term, but we need significantly more time to organise the whole thing in Europe." His remarks drew applause from industry representatives in the room, many of whom have lobbied for exactly this breathing space. Söder's positioning also reflected Bavarian politics. The state is home to BMW and Audi, whose fortunes are tied closely to the pace of Europe's automotive transformation. Beyond political speeches, the automotive sector itself offered its own framework for navigating the transition. Hildegard Müller, president of the German Association of the Automotive Industry, VDA, outlined a pragmatic path forward. Hildegard Müller said, "With its 10-point plan, the automotive industry has presented a way to achieve these targets. The key factor here is that, firstly, the CO2 fleet regulations need to be adjusted. It is necessary to revise the reduction target for passenger cars and light commercial vehicles for 2035 to -90%. Her call reflected the industry's push for ambitious but achievable targets. Instead of an outright 100% reduction, which implies a de facto ban on combustion cars, the VDA argues that a 90% cut would keep room for alternative fuels such as e-fuels and hybrids, while still ensuring steep emissions cuts. Merz, Söder and Müller's interventions highlight a growing continental rift. When the EU voted in 2023 to phase out combustion engines by 2035, it was hailed as a landmark moment for climate policy. But since then, economic pressures have mounted. Energy costs spiked after the war in Ukraine. Consumer uptake of electric vehicles has been slower than forecast in southern and eastern Europe. And manufacturers complain that supply chains for batteries and raw materials remain too dependent on China. Against this backdrop, Germany's automotive industry, responsible for nearly a quarter of Europe's car output, has become the loudest critic of a rigid timeline. Merz's government is walking a fine line, signalling support for climate action while demanding Brussels loosen its grip. The Chancellor's language suggested a strategy of moderation. By calling for flexibility, Merz is positioning Germany as a negotiator rather than a blocker. His insistence on technological openness echoes the argument that Europe should invest not only in battery electric vehicles, but also in hydrogen, synthetic fuels and hybrid technologies. Yet the domestic politics are complicated. Green and Social Democratic coalition partners in Berlin remain wary of backtracking, warning that any dilution of the 2035 deadline could undermine Europe's climate leadership. Meanwhile, the opposition Christian Democrats and Bavarian Conservatives are pushing hard for a more industry-friendly stance. The Munich Motor Show offered more than glitzy unveilings of electric SUVs and futuristic concept cars. It exposed the deep uncertainty over Europe's green mobility transition. While innovation dazzled on display floors, the real debate was playing out on stage between political leaders and industry chiefs. Friedrich Merz insisted Germany is not abandoning climate targets but wants to shape them differently. Markus Söder declared the combustion ban wrong and demanded its repeal. Hildegard Müller outlined the sector's 10-point plan to recalibrate expectations. For Europe, the question remains, can the continent balance ambitious climate goals with industrial competitiveness? And can it do so without leaving millions of jobs and consumers stranded in the process? As the motor show continues, one message rings clear. Germany is pressing Brussels for more time, more options and more realism in the electric revolution.